So, this episode is gonna be a little bit more chilled, I guess. But more for that, or more in terms of that, is going to be more after the intro. More after that. I don't fucking know. But yeah, with that being said, hello, welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics fucking podcast. And before I even begin to talk about something else, if you want to listen to this episode, if you kind of feel like having some sort of an audiobook experience, some sort of a listening experience, then please check out the link in the description, because there should be the link to the podcast, and then you can listen to this episode, so to this particular video, as like it would be an audiobook. And it is amazing for some people. Some people might like the video version a little bit more, and this is also really fine. Then you should also be doing that. And this is why I'm having two options. Either you choose the podcast or you choose the YouTube video. Today's episode is going to be a little bit more chilled because I've seen that when I'm talking way too fast, and I'm also making a lot of mistakes. And this is not something that's pretty pleasant for the whole experience of listening or watching the episode. Therefore, I'm trying to not just be way too energetic maybe, and try to be a little bit more clear maybe as well, and all those things. But yeah, as you can see on the left side already, we are first of all going through another blog post or another article from Seth Godin, and it's a pretty good one. It's a pretty amazing one. I've already read it. It's not a really long one, but still, it doesn't necessarily have to be long to be good, That's what she said. The fuck? Today's episode is already a little bit strange. The article is called, or the blog post is called, "Get What You Want Without Compromise." I don't know if, it's a quote, it's quote unquote, and I'm gonna read. "That's the call of our times. Run a marathon without getting tired, lose weight without dieting, get ahead without working hard, earn big money without risk. When you expose it is clearly, it's obviously nonsense. Compromise is precisely what's called for. You can't have everything you want, but if you care enough and trade enough and work hard enough, you might be able to get some things that matter. The real question might not be, what do you want? It might be, what do you care enough to compromise for? P.S. Today's the last day to sign up for the Freelancer Workshop. This is our last session of the year. Time to start doing the work to earn better clients." And I have to say, it's totally right. The problem there is, work is really not easy all the time. It might be simple, and it might be just, in theory, might be really simple in terms of the things you actually have to do, but it definitely is not easy. It's definitely not easy because it involves compromising, time, relationships, those things, some things that might not be really easy to compromise and might not really be, really easy. I think easy is the best word to describe that, but at some point in time, you do just have to compromise. You do just have to sacrifice, as I often talk about it. So I would rather say sacrificing things, even though it's a little bit too strong maybe, and this might also be one of the reasons why he chose to use compromise, because is it a compromission or something? I don't know what the noun of compromising is, but the thing is, some things take time, and a lot of things take time, and a lot of things that are good take quite a lot of time. As let's, for example, take the podcast, I'm podcasting, and I have been podcasting for a year now, and it's just took me, I think it's actually like more than a day of podcast length that I'm already having. It is quite some time. It is quite some time that I'm quote unquote sacrificing, or that I'm quote unquote compromising for my goal of having a podcast. And for some other things, for example, losing weight or just being in better shape, it definitely is dieting. There's no way around dieting. And I would even argue that dieting is the easiest way to lose weight, because you can't gain any weight. There's no physical way you can do that if you do just eat less calories than you're just using or you are in need of. There is no way you can lose weight then. Of course it takes some time, and of course you're not going to lose a lot of weight in the next 5 hours. Of course it takes some time again. But it is actually pretty simple. Just consume less calories than you need. Because then there is no way you gain weight. Because if you're gaining weight, it's basically like you're having too many calories, or is it too much or too many? I think it's too many, right? When you're having too many calories, then they are just getting stored, as fat in the end, because you're not burning them, unless you're actually burning them, which is the other option, which is doing quite a lot of sports. You could be working out every single day for an hour, and I guess this would also do just a pretty good thing. It would also just do the trick, basically. If you do not really want to diet that much, the conclusion is, in the end, you do just need to have less calories than you need to have in your body to just sustain it, basically. I'm already saying sustaining, because if there is no fucking energy to sustain your current shape and form, then you do just have to lose weight, or your body has to transform, and the transformation is going to result in losing some weight. Work, it's definitely, including work, we have to work. Like, work is the variable. If reading and learning and listening and watching and whatnot, if this would actually be the variable, then I think we all would be millionaires, and we all would be billionaires, and we all would just have everything that we want to have. But this is not the case. Work and doing something is the variable, and this is what we have to do to get to somewhere, to just get what we want to have, to get what we are caring enough for, to actually compromise for it. And I think it's actually a pretty nice explanation or pretty nice phrase to say, what do you care enough to compromise for? Because it's actually about caring. If you really care about your body, and if you really care about your health, then you're also going to compromise eating one less burger a week, or one less burger a day, maybe even. I don't fucking know what you're doing. But it could be the case. It could really be the case. But that's quite it for this article. There's another article that's relatively long, and no blog post. I'm always referring to it as articles, but I think it's more like blog posts. But I'm not going to go through this one, but we will see. Especially also, I think I want to talk more than I'm reading today. It feels more like a talking day, or it feels more like a talking episode. I often also feel like that the talking episodes are a little bit better, since I'm not making so many mistakes, since there is no way that I can misread things. Therefore, I'm just at the time for all the podcast listeners in the Reddit space, or on the Reddit site, and in the self-improvement space. It is actually a pretty nice, is it called section? I do think, or is it a Reddit? I'm not quite sure. There is, I think, some name for these things on Reddit, but I'm not quite familiar with these things. Therefore, it's just what it is, I guess. I do, by the way, hope that the audio is fine, since I'm only having one blanket in front of me, and there's not two blankets as there normally is. Maybe to just have some clothes over here, so that I'm a little bit sure that everything is fine, and that the audio is also fine. But yeah, the first question is, the first maybe also statement. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a question, but this time it actually is a question. For people who work 60 plus hours and go to gym, how do you do it? And I gotta have to say, I'm also doing that. I'm doing sports. I'm not in the gym because I kind of feel like that it is somehow unnecessary, at least for me. The gym is something it is having something to do with marketing. We are having the gym because people needed the money, or people wanted to make money off of people that are just in need of moving, basically. Yeah, it is actually a pretty negative way to say that, and it's actually a pretty negative way to talk about gyms. But in the end, it is actually the case, and the whole industry is based on making money. We don't need treadmills. We can also just go outside and run, even if it is raining, even if it is snowing. It basically is just working, and you might also be doing that. But the thing is, being in a cozy room, being in a warm room and whatnot, and having clothes on that just are not like thick as a wall, basically. This is my wall. My wall is just somehow like 10 inches deep. I don't know. But the thing is, I'm also working out. I'm also working out at home for an hour, basically for an hour, 5 times a week. I'm trying to do it 5 times a week, including the sports that I'm doing at school. In school, I'm always having sports on Monday for 2 hours, which is pretty great. 2 hours of sports, 2 hours of running, being able to play basketball or football. Well, actually soccer, not football, and other sports and other games is pretty nice. Because I'm not having a space for myself that I can use to just run around and play soccer in and whatnot, especially not in the winter times. Because in the summer I can obviously go out and play some soccer there. The thing is, I'm also doing that, but I'm also meditating. I'm also just like, the thing is, I think it must somehow be like 32 hours that I'm now in school. It got a little bit less, On Monday it's still 6:10, so 6 p.m. basically. Then on Tuesday it's 5 p.m. I guess. Yeah. And then from Wednesday to Friday it is 1 p.m. Which is quite fine, which is really fine. It definitely improved compared to the years before. Like the years before, I've always had I've always had school till 5 p.m. or something, which is totally fine. Like I've also enjoyed that. But I'm now just being in school for around, like, I don't know, let's say 30 hours and whatnot. The thing is, I'm also recording for an hour each day, and I'm also working out 5 times a week, and I'm also meditating, and I'm also just having to eat, and I'm also doing this and that. I'm doing quite a lot of things, I'm really trying to do quite a lot of things. The thing is, we all can be way more efficient, and I can also be way, way, way more efficient and way more, I can also do way more. The thing is, we all can do way more. We all are spending a fucking hour on doing dumb shit. We all are doing this. I am as well doing that. When I'm watching YouTube, which is or might not necessarily be just necessary, then I'm also quite wasting time. And it is what it is. I am wasting time. And this is the point. We are wasting a lot of time. We all are doing that by watching Netflix, by just not being as fast as we could be. Like, for example, I'm always trying to be as fast when I'm showering as possible. Just because I know I would rather just use the time for something else than just staying in the shower and showering. It's not something that's, I don't know, this is also something that you have to think about, whether the time that you're spending in a certain place and or the time you're spending doing something particular, if it is just worth the time. The problem with school is that you have to be there. Of course, you can just be a really shitty student if you really feel like that the time you spend in school and the time you spend on doing your homework and all those things is just really unnecessary and really like you hate it. Then I think it's totally fine if you're not just taking care of that, at least not as some other people would be doing it. But it just takes quite some time, quite some time that you could basically choose and use for something else. The thing is, the conclusion here is that we all are wasting quite a lot of time, and we can use this amount of time for doing something that is mattering and something that matters. On the other hand, I also have to point out that having some escapism and just watching a YouTube video and these things, it is totally fine. It totally is fine. And I would also encourage you, and I want also encourage you to do that, because we all need to rest, actively and passively by just sleeping enough, and actively by just sitting there, just playing a game of FIFA, playing a game of Call of Duty, watching this series, watching an episode and whatnot. But we also do just have to think about the things that we are willing to do, the things that we want to do, and all those things. Like, it's just a balance, it just really should be balanced out based on the things that you are willing to achieve and based on the things that you want to have in the end. But yeah, enough talking and a little bit more question reading. I want to know how to stop my word vomit. I don't know what this is. I have this terrible habit of talking too much. No one ever tells me to shut up, and honestly, I'm sure I could use that sometime. If my coworkers are having a conversation, I overhear something I may be interested in I'll interject without thinking and give completely unsolicited advice. I can talk and talk and talk and talk for hours. It is a family trait, but honestly, I think it's probably related to my ADHD more than anything. The thing is, hours after I do it, I 100% regret my decision, but in the moments, it's like mouth diarrhea, and I can't stop it. I'm one of those people that who speaks before they think, and sometimes it doesn't end well because I put zero thought into my idiotic brain jet stream of useless input that no one probably needs. It's a blessing and a curse. People love and also hate my honesty. I want my words to be 100% more calculated. Do I need to talk some sort of VOW of silence? Spend 10 years in a monastery? Literally cut my tongue out of my face? Help, please. Edit. I would also like to add that I have filter issues. It usually works out in my favor as some sick ass jokes, but I've said some really embarrassing, accidentally inappropriate stuff before. I have to say that I sometimes feel it is also the case for me, especially on a podcast. And when I'm actually editing the podcast, I'm seeing, okay, what the fuck am I talking about? Like, what the fuck am I doing here? And the thing is, I forget it relatively quickly, especially after I've edited and I finished editing the video. I actually forget it. I really forget it, And up to this point, I've actually also forgotten it. It's really then not really something that is bothering me. But when I'm seeing it, it is bothering me quite a bit because I would like to add something. I also could be doing that, but it is quite some work. Therefore, it's like, never mind. The thing is, I would actually say that you should start something like a podcast, I guess, because, and this is also something that's, I don't know, I guess it actually was Seth Godin as well. But by podcasting and, for example, also blogging, you are thinking more about the thoughts that you're having in your brain. You're thinking more about the things that you're talking about, and it is something that's pretty valuable. Throughout the podcast, I've also been able to just think about different things, think about topics, think about things that I would have never been thinking about before, and actually building up an opinion on those things, on those specific topics, and it is relatively valuable. And also, I guess, like, there must be some day and there must be some way you can actually stop talking, basically, by, for example, talking really, really, really a lot on the podcast or whatever you're doing, having a conversation. And I do not necessarily think that you should be having a conversation with somebody, because I don't know, when this is something that is not really something that's very comfortable for you, then you should also not be doing that. But just doing something like I'm doing, like having a podcast where you're just talking, where you're just on your own, and where you're spending your time with yourself, basically, I think would actually be a great way to just incorporate some time for you to speak without bothering anybody, but maybe yourself. The next question: how to not let your self-doubt or negative thinking get in your way? It is actually something that's so highly, I wouldn't say suggested, but it's so highly discussed and so highly talked about. And I think it is actually something that a lot of people are struggling with. Maybe some people won't be talking about it and some people won't actually admit it maybe as well. But I think it is actually something that's, I would actually argue that the majority of the people is struggling with that. Because, I've also, the thing is, like, for some people like me, it is a little bit, it's dangerous to say that I can relate to that, because I don't actually know. I'm not having just a lot of self-doubt. I'm not thinking negatively, at least not consciously. It might be something that's very subconscious, but consciously I'm not doing that. The thing is, saying things like, okay, just stop doing this, is the dumbest shit that I've ever heard. And if somebody's telling you to just don't do it, unless it is something physical and unless it is something that you can actually stop just doing, then I don't know, don't get angry. Just admit that people maybe cannot relate to how you're feeling. But I honestly do not really have a good answer to that question, because I don't know, because I really honestly don't know what to say, and what it is really like and those things. But maybe you should actually get some professional help through therapy, through just talking to somebody that knows what he and or she is talking about. This is something that's particularly valuable, I guess. And maybe just look up things on the internet. Like, there's a lot of resources on the internet, and there's a lot of things to just read, listen to, watch, and all those things from pretty good people, I would say. Pretty good people. I kind of feel like sometimes people are underrating the ability the ability of the internet of providing really, really, really valuable just information, ideas, and whatever it might be. It really is valuable sometimes. Not always, sometimes you're also getting a lot of shit, and I know that, but quite often you're actually getting some good stuff as well. Community for accountability. I want to create a community for people who are not able to get their daily to-dos ticked off. Maybe attaching accountability will help all of us. DM me and we can create a group where we report to each other our progress of what we did each day and uplift each of us. It's actually a pretty good thought, just because it is a way to manipulate yourself, basically, to stimulate your willingness and maybe even motivation to do something. Because if you know that you have to tell other people what you did, and if you've done something in terms of if you've actually done what you should be doing, and this might be some sort of not really a trigger, but it might be some sort of a way to forcing you to do that than actually doing that, because it would make sense for me. It would just be, and this is also something that James Clear was talking about, the author of Atomic Habits, on his blog post, or actually on his blog, and he was also talking about that as a way to just get habits to stick as well, because first of all, you're gonna feel bad if you haven't accomplished what you should be accomplishing. But actually having some people to talk about those things, and I think a problem in the first place is going to be not filtering yourself and being honest to yourself and also to the people there. I guess this might actually be a problem. But in the end, if you're just really honest to them, and if you kind of talk about as it is, then I guess it is a pretty good thing. The next question: best YouTube channels for self-improvement. You know what it is. It's mine. I have learned a great deal from YouTube, and I wanted to know what are the best YouTube channels for someone wanting to improve further. And I do want to see what the answers are. Maybe because this is also helping you. This is one of the reasons why I'm also doing that. Dre Baldwin. Seriously, check this guy out. He's a no bullshit, get right to the point type of guy. Has an amazing podcast called Work on Your Game and has a bunch of books you should check out. He has helped me a ton over the years. I'm a big fan of Wheezy Wader. He often does 30-day challenges and describes how he feels before, during, and after. Things he has done for a month: no social media, vegan for a month, no added sugars, wake up at 4:30 a.m., meditated daily, etc. And he is super funny. Your submission to self-improvement was automatically removed for including a photo link or video in violation of blah 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 blah. I'm a bot and this action, okay, it is a bot. Nathaniel Jew and Matt Davella and The Art of Improvement are great. I also have to say, Matt Davella is somebody that was also suggested to me by a colleague of mine. John Fish, Ask Hodge Twins. And I would actually also say that is Gary Vee a part of it? I would actually say that I am as well, but this is actually not something that I'm willing to say here, because I don't know, like, the thing is it then not choosing myself? I don't know. I don't even know if I'm a channel that is about typical kind of self-improvement. But I would say Gary Vee, and I do actually want to do that. I do actually want to point myself out. The funny thing is, if then people just watch this video, then it's really fucking funny. I'm just really thinking, I'm just sticking with Gary Vee. I'm not quite sure if I should be doing this, because I'm always a little bit concerned that I'm concerned of things, I'm concerned of actually my karma as well. I don't know if this is the right thing to do, therefore I'm not also going to do it. But yeah, I guess this is actually going to be the end of the episode, and it's been one of the greatest episodes that I've actually been recording in the last 5 days, the last actually 2 weeks, I guess. The last 2 weeks have been, and especially week, has been relatively tough in terms of the recording things, because nothing actually felt that right, and I always felt like not recording. Also today, before this episode, I've also felt like really not recording some sorta. But yeah, I wish you the best self-health. What I'm always saying, I always wish you the best health, happiness, and also success. And I also hope that you're going to remind yourself when you're going to be remembered, because this is definitely something that we can change and we can stimulate by, for example, being a nice person and also being remembered as a nice person. Yeah. And with that being said, 3 other questions that I hope that you're going to ask yourself are: why are you here? What are you trying to change? And what is bothering you the most? Since these 3 questions are hopefully going to show you your purpose and maybe even a business ideas, because a lot of businesses and founders and people started out with solving something that really pissed them off. It's just, first of all, it pissed them off, and then they started to change that, and then it was alright. But yeah, I'll see you the next time. I at least hope. So please stay subscribed, or please subscribe, and please subscribe to the podcast, so that I'm able to see you the next time, and that you also do not lose out or miss out on any valuable information. I'll see you the next time.